Imagine you're walking through the ruins of an ancient city, one that was already thousands of years old before the Roman Empire even existed. Archaeologists brush away centuries of dust, expecting to uncover weapons, pottery, or the foundations of forgotten temples. Instead, they find something completely unexpected: a small wooden board, carefully decorated with bright shells and precious stones. Beside it, several tiny playing pieces. At first, no one knows what they're looking at. But after years of research, the mystery is solved. Someone wasn't building. Someone wasn't fighting. Someone was playing a game. Today, we know it as the Royal Game of UR, one of the oldest board games ever discovered, dating back more than 4,500 years. Think about that for a second. An object created simply for play survived longer than entire kingdoms. But here's the part that surprised archaeologists the most. This wasn't the beginning of games. It wasn't even close. Because long before humans built cities, long before they invented writing, long before the first king ruled over the first kingdom, people were already playing. Which raises a fascinating question. Why? Why would ancient humans waste precious time on games, when every single day was a struggle to survive? If finding food was uncertain, if predators lurked beyond the trees, if one mistake could cost you your life, why spend even a single minute playing? For decades, scientists believed they knew the answer. Games were simply entertainment, a way to pass the time. But modern archaeology, evolutionary biology, and anthropology now tell a very different story. Play wasn't a distraction from survival. It was survival. The children who chased each other through open grasslands. The teenagers throwing sticks at distant targets. The young hunters wrestling beside a campfire. They weren't just having fun. Without realizing it, they were training their brains, sharpening their bodies, and preparing for a world where skill meant the difference between eating or starving. In other words, the first classroom in human history wasn't built from stone. It wasn't led by a teacher. And it certainly didn't have walls. It was a game. And once archaeologists realized that, they started seeing evidence of play everywhere. Exactly where the first game was played, we'll probably never know. Games leave behind almost nothing. A race disappears the moment it ends. Laughter can't be fossilized. The rules of a competition vanish with the people who invented them. But human behavior leaves clues. And those clues tell a remarkable story. Imagine a child living 40,000 years ago. There are no schools, no books. No one explains how to survive. Every lesson must be learned by watching others. How do you throw a spear? How do you follow an animal without being seen? How do you know which plants are safe to eat? Making a mistake isn't embarrassing. It's dangerous. So children did what children have always done. They copied the adults. Only, they turned those lessons into play. A straight stick became a spear. A pile of stones became a herd of animals. A fallen log became the perfect place to test balance. What looked like simple games were actually practice sessions for real life. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer communities have found this same pattern across different parts of the world. Children naturally invent games that mirror the skills they'll need as adults. They chase. They hide. They climb. They throw. They compete. Not because anyone tells them to, but because the human brain is built to learn through play. And humans aren't the only ones. Young wolves wrestle before they hunt. Lion cubs stalk each other through tall grass before they ever chase real prey. Young chimpanzees invent playful contests long before they face the challenges of adulthood. Across the animal kingdom, intelligent species seem to follow the same rule. Practice first, survive later. Humans simply took that instinct further than any other species. Because our ancestors didn't just play to become stronger. They played to become smarter. Every challenge taught timing. Every mistake improved judgment. Every victory built confidence. Without realizing it, those simple games were shaping something far more powerful than strong hunters. They were shaping better thinkers. And eventually, humans discovered something extraordinary. Games didn't just prepare you for survival. They could reveal who was the fastest, who was the strongest, who was the most accurate. And before long, friendly practice quietly transformed into the world's very first competitions. Imagine an open stretch of land at the edge of a prehistoric camp. A group of young hunters gathers before sunrise. One places a smooth stone on top of a tree stump. Another walks several steps back, gripping a wooden spear. There is no prize, no crowd, no referee, just a simple challenge. Who can hit the target first? One spear misses. Another lands close. Then, someone strikes the center. The others cheer, laugh, and immediately ask for another turn. To them, it's a game. But to the group, it's something much more valuable. Every accurate throw increases the chances of a successful hunt. Every missed throw becomes a lesson instead of a disaster. No one has to risk starving to learn what works. Researchers believe this is one of the greatest advantages of play. It creates a safe place to fail. A child can miss the target 100 times during a game and become far more skilled before ever facing a real hunt. The same was true for running. Children chased one another across fields, not realizing they were building endurance. They climbed rocks for fun, while improving balance and coordination. They wrestled with friends, learning strength, timing, and self-control without causing serious harm. What looked like entertainment was quietly becoming education. Then something changed. As human groups grew larger, games began serving another purpose. They brought people together. A hunt required trust. Everyone needed to move at the right moment. Everyone needed to understand one another without long explanations. Games became the perfect way to practice cooperation. Winning no longer depended on one person's strength. It depended on working together. And perhaps that's why every civilization, no matter how far apart they lived, eventually invented games of their own. Different lands, different languages, different cultures, yet the same idea appeared again and again. Play wasn't a luxury. It was part of being human. But as villages became cities, and cities became kingdoms, games began to change. People were no longer competing only with their bodies. For the first time in history, they began competing with their minds. And that simple idea gave birth to one of humanity's oldest and most remarkable inventions, the board game. Thousands of years passed. Small camps became villages. Villages became cities. And for the first time, humans had something they had never truly possessed before: free time. Archaeologists can actually see the moment games began to change. Around 4,500 years ago, in the ancient city of Ur, people were no longer throwing spears or racing across open fields. They were gathering around beautifully crafted wooden boards, moving small pieces according to a set of rules. Today, we know it as the royal game of Ur, one of the oldest board games ever discovered. But Ur wasn't alone. Across the deserts of Egypt, another game appeared. It was called Senet. The game became so important that pharaohs were buried with it, believing it would accompany them into the afterlife. A pastime had become something far greater. It had become part of culture and even belief. Then came games of chance. Across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, archaeologists have uncovered polished ankle bones from sheep and goats, known as knuckle bones. They were tossed like dice, turning ordinary bones into one of humanity's earliest games of luck. What's remarkable is that these civilizations were separated by hundreds, sometimes thousands, of kilometers. Many had never met, yet they all arrived at the same idea: create rules, test skill, challenge the mind, have fun. It's almost as if the human brain was designed for games. In many ways, it was. Modern neuroscience shows that play strengthens memory, improves problem-solving, builds social bonds, and helps the brain adapt to new challenges. Anthropologists have reached a similar conclusion. Play wasn't an escape from reality. It was one of the reasons our species became so successful. Because every game teaches something. A race teaches endurance. A wrestling match teaches control. A strategy game teaches planning. Even losing teaches resilience. Perhaps that's why games have survived every chapter of human history. Empires have risen. Empires have fallen. Languages have disappeared. Entire civilizations have vanished beneath the sand. Yet people still gather around boards. They still race. They still compete. They still laugh after a lucky move and groan after an unlucky one. The tools have changed. The rules have evolved. But the instinct remains exactly the same. So, did ancient humans play games? The evidence says they did. Not because life was easy, but because life was difficult. Games prepared children for survival. They strengthened communities. They trained minds before they trained muscles. And eventually, they became something even more powerful. A universal language. One spoken by every civilization that has ever called this planet home. The next time you roll a pair of dice, kick a football, or sit down to play your favorite game, remember this. You aren't participating in a modern invention. You're continuing a tradition that has been shaping human beings for tens of thousands.